we found this video. This is from about a year and a half ago. This is the Prime Minister of the Netherlands basically talking about how the countries that are in power, how they have to basically fund the media so that nobody can figure out what they're doing.
You need free press at these moments to be able to explain to the people what is really happening. But that costs money. So one of the pleas I have with big business here in Davos, don't put all your money in the internet advertising. Make sure that our newspapers, our news outlets, also our TV stations, also in the future will be able to pay sensible and real salaries to our journalists to be able to do this. I believe it is crucial.
Sara, you work at the Blaze. I work with the Blaze. You work at a place that is independent. No one's telling you what to do, what to say, et cetera, et cetera. It is not government funded. By the way, the video we just showed you, that was from Rebel News, which of course is Ezra's outfit up there in Canada, for as long as Ezra remains in Canada. But this idea that governments should be funding news, completely insane, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I think China would agree. North Korea would agree. Russia would probably agree. I remember the good old days when media and lawmakers, at least here in America, pretended to care about a free press whenever, President Trump would utter one mean word about them and they'd be screaming about freedom of the press, or he would ban one reporter from one media outlet while allowing other reporters from that same media outlet to enter the briefing room. And they were screaming about how freedom of the press was under attack. Now we're just talking about having state-run media and just like the Communist Party of China. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, that seems like a great idea. There's no conflict of interest there. It's all about protecting the narrative. It just is like the social media companies that we were talking about, Twitter, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, Parag. They have to protect the narrative at all costs. They know that, which is why they need the journalists to do their dirty work for them. It's just sick.
Ezra, can you talk a bit about what's going on in Canada right now relative to this bill that's being pushed that I think has actually been signed already, where pretty much everybody is you're going to have to now register and they'll be able to control what you can and can't say. And of course, you already have the CBC, which is basically in bed with Trudeau and the Liberals. So you already have a state-run media in Canada.
Yeah. You'd think inflation, price of gas, groceries, whatever would be the most important thing to a government today. But Trudeau, actually, it's censorship and control of the internet. He has 4 different bills going through Parliament. Some have already passed. They're going to regulate the internet like they regulate TV stations and radio in Canada, which is very strictly. Trudeau has been paying the media hundreds of millions of dollars, but only the media that, quote, he trusts. That's the word he used, trustworthy media, which means his media. He's colonized them. He's introduced a journalistic license called the QCJO, Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization, and it's his staff that will determine whether or not you're qualified. And if you're not qualified, and obviously we were refused that status, you will be, his next bill is to require Facebook, Google to boost the QCJO, the qualified licensed media, in the rankings and deboost. So it's not just that Google and Facebook have their own algorithms that are biased. Trudeau's bill would require them to introduce his biases into the algorithm to silence his critics like us and to promote the ones that he trusts. It's a licensing provision. One last thing, Dave, it's not just the government money. And in Canada, 99.9% of journalists now take government money. 1,500 media companies, I didn't even know there were that many in Canada, are on the dole. There's maybe 10 that aren't, including us. But Google and Facebook are now spending hundreds of millions of dollars directly subsidizing legacy media also in Australia, in Canada. That's another thing. You have to be a QCJO licensed Trudeau journalist to get that big tech money. But if you're an independent journalist, but suddenly a third of your money is coming from Google and Facebook, and a third of your money is coming from the government, you're not an independent journalist anymore, at least not on anything touching the government or big tech. Journalists no longer work for their viewers. They work for oligarchs. We should start using that word oligarch here. Why should we only call Ukrainians and Russians oligarchs? You don't think Bezos is an oligarch? You don't think Zuckerberg is an oligarch? Someone who has money and power and wants to rule the world, and to hell with the little people and democracy? We have our oligarchs too.
Nick, to that point, I mean, having just done your movie Capital Punishment, you know, we go through this absolutely sham, ridiculous, I don't even want to call it a trial. I don't know what you can call it other than a clown show, this January 6th hearing, which it's basically done already and nothing came out of it. There was this pretend moment that they claimed Trump tried to grab the wheel of the car. I mean, it's all so stupid. Everyone thought it was a joke except mainstream media. They really loved it. Doesn't that kind of prove the point that Ezra's making here?
Absolutely. I mean, I love that idea that Trump fought his way through the back of a limousine through the
good
window
movie,
there
man,
to get to the driver. It made him look even better than I thought he was. I didn't know he was like some kind of superhero. But yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to remember it being taught in school about Pravda and about Soviet propaganda and how, you know, state-run media is a bad thing. They taught me that in history class in high school. And now I think what's happening is that these journalism schools, they churn out these kind of brainwashed people. I mean, Khrushchev said it back in the 50s, we're going to march through your institutions and we will take you over without firing a shot. And that's what they've done to these journalists. And so many of them, it's not like some grand conspiracy. They've all been educated to accept this idea that it's okay to take money from the government and then say what the government wants them to say. And it's gone so far that it's going to take a long march back through the institutions in order to change things and to get these journalists back to the point of actually reporting the actual news rather than just being mouthpieces for whatever government they serve.